435,000 times last year somebody entered a hospital and met their demise because of a preventable error. Anybody here ever had somebody in a hospital suffer an error, a preventable error? Could be a fall, could be something left inside the body. I've seen the Geico ad where they have a phone left in the body and somebody's calling it when the surgeon's there. Actually a real case, not in the United States, but a surgeon left a phone inside a bariatric patient. So that's something. So I'm Jason Howe, the CEO of Magvation, and Magvation is dedicated to reducing preventable medical errors or never events in hospitals. I have the privilege of working with some of the greatest minds, some of the most passionate doctors, technologists, and business people. We've all come together for a reason. So I'm going to let this thing fly behind me. I probably won't stay up with it, but at least it's something you can look at. But Magvation really started as a company that was a consortium, a think tank of people, 4 of us that got together and said, how can we address this perilous problem of preventable errors in hospitals? And so Tom Hamlin, who is a DNP, Doctor of Nursing, just retired to be with Magvation full time, was a CAO of UCSD. That's Tom. Our CMO, Dr. John Robinson, ran the Aurora Health System, and our CTO and his wife Serena. Each one of us, including myself, had family members who suffered never events. So fast forward 3 years, we have some of the greatest minds, as I said, and some of the biggest healthcare professionals working to solve this problem. And ex-Surgeon General, United States Secretary of Defense, the President Demetrius of Joint Commission, just a who's who cast. And they're with Magvation, not because of me, because we're a little small. Some of them get paid literally hundreds of thousands of dollars to be on boards. We're a startup, so not ours, but because they're all passionate about solving this problem. So we started with Haystack. You'll see it out there. And Haystack is literally a fancy bucket that sits above the operating room table that reduces the chances greatly of leaving a needle inside the body post-surgery. It alleviates needle sticks with contaminated needles. And it also speeds up the OR process. How do we do that? Well, we've invented something that has magnets, IoT, and software. We have other products, but Magvation Holdings, the lead product right now is Haystack. And so what this product does is it literally counts needles. It's a bucket that uses some fancy magnets we invented, some Bluetooth technology to communicate back, keep an audit trail, but it counts magnets. It's a metal detector. What we've been able to do with that is put in a new workflow. We've been able to cut 92 steps out of a average 2-hour vascular surgery. And the main thing is it empowers the surgeon to put the needles in the bucket themselves. Anybody seen surgeries? So, anybody done surgeries? Any doctors here? Surgeons? Well, the reason I bring that up is right now the way you do it is surgeon makes a tie, cuts off, they hand back the needle, the scrub tech walks over and puts it in this little plastic box, okay? And that little plastic box has some numbers and they have to do audible counting. So Dr. Koenig, who is Admiral Koenig, who's also the Surgeon General, his quote is, the biggest advance we've had in counting needles in the last 30 years is moving from the chalkboard to the whiteboard. It's been done the same way for so long. So why is that? Well, we're solving a problem that isn't that sexy. We're not a Da Vinci. We're not a super sophisticated algorithm and AI component for driving some new outcomes. We're solving some basic problems, some basic blocking and tackling that's been around for 30 years, as long as surgery needles have been around. And so we're raising money, so you're seeing a funding deck go, and we're doing a bridge round right now. We have 51 hospitals that have pre-purchased in 4 different systems, the Prime Healthcare System, UCSD, Eskenazi Health, as well as John Muir. Dr. Niren Angle, good friend and vascular surgeon and chief of surgery up at John Muir, helped me invent this thing. And again, it's a bucket that counts needles instead of counting them by hand. And that's it. Again, it has some sophistication that it talks to Bluetooth, to some things on the wall that are IoT. It gives some different audit trails. It makes some fancy noises and sounds when you put it in there for confirmation. But it's not that sexy. But it is very, very practical. And in the next 3 years, we'll save over 1,383 lives, statistically speaking. So that's exciting for us. So what have we done? We do have a lot of patents on this stuff. We invented a magnet that turns on and off and creates an eddy field that goes around these magnets that makes sure that there's no magnets exposed on the sterile field. You don't want to get your needles holders magnetized. You don't want your surgical instruments magnetized. So one of our big pieces of special sauce is the contrarian use of magnets on the surgical field. There's a lot of patents out there that actually talk about not using magnets. So here's a funny story. Pole position, one of our other products, is something that helps move IV poles around the hospital. It has IoT, it has tracking, it has UV light sterilization, but you can move 8 IV poles up to a time. For central services, they usually stack those. So one of our first products, we come out and we bring up these magnetic couplers that come and attach to the IV poles. Well, we did all of this. We came in, ready for the big dog and pony. Can anybody tell me what IV poles are made of? They're non-magnetic. It didn't work so well, right? The IV poles themselves are not magnetic. So we've come up with this coupling device that goes, and it's literally one of our pieces of special sauce, if you will, is a on and off magnet that goes into a universal coupler. You can see it out there. That's used on everything. So we have pole position. We also have something for staging of catheters, or I should say stents. So again, we're raising some money. If there's anybody with money, take it. No? Not yet. Damn. All right, so that's what we're doing. I'll open it up to some real quick questions. Anything? It's early. Yes, sir.
You mentioned 1,300 lives saved this year. Is that domestically only,
U.S. market right now. So the way that we've boiled that down is in the U.S. there's about 5,800 something hospitals. We boiled that down to medical hospitals that do bariatric, vascular, cardiothoracic. Of those, 1 in every 19,000 people will have a RSI with a surgical needle, a retained surgical item, something left in. And of those, 90% of those will have resurgery, and of those, 11% will die. So it's a simple matter of math based on pro forma of how many surgeries we'll be involved with. Please.
You said you have 51, call them pre-orders?
51 pre-orders. What that means is we have 51 surgeons at 51 different hospitals that have agreed to bring this in. It's sold as a POS model. That's the new buzz, platform as a service. It's no longer SaaS.
So will they give you an order so you can actually finance those procedures?
The answer is no, because things can happen. So right now we're into the soft tooling, and that's why we're raising the money, is to actually bring it to market. Most of them have a 3-month window. It's about 6 months to market from go. So it's assigned basically an LOI, but it's cancelable. So I don't want to call it a true PO. But what it is 3 months and 56 surgeries per month per 51 hospitals. Good question.
What do you see the FDA classifying this as?
That is a great question, and I spoke with this man earlier on the FDA classification. So we are not changing the workflow, we're augmenting it. And in that, we are going to fall under 2 categories. So our disposable will still fall under a needle counter, which is exempt class 1.
Okay.
And then the guts of the thing, because it is powered, does not fit into that classification. So we're piggybacking on what they did for sponge counting, which is also an exempt right now. So we're trying to make sure we do everything to keep it an exempt.
And will that be true for the MDR in Europe?
Don't know.
Okay.
It's a good question, though. I would love to say yes, but it's a little trickier. Question?
Yeah, how much are you raising?
Yeah, so right now we're raising 1.5 million. Of that, we've already raised 900,000 of that. It's a rolling close. And that we're trying to look for kind of a lead institutional investor. So one of our partners is pop sockets. Anybody have a pop socket on the back of their phone? You know what pop sockets are? So we use those actually to temporarily hold needles during surgery. So you can reuse a needle during surgery. 10% of surgeons say they will, 1% of those 10% actually use them. And it's usually chaos because they're usually set aside and no one uses them. A $756 suture, ProLead, this adds up pretty quick. So Pop Sockets is putting in, they're our institutional lead, TKB Corporation from Japan. They're going to pull it through and do the registration process over there, which usually takes a year. And some doctors and the Palomar Health System is involved. So we're looking for about 500 more, but we've hit the go button. Thank you.
Yeah,
So yes and no. So you can't do your clinicals till you have your certifications, right? And so one of the things we've been going through that process. So when we've done the porcine models and some of the others, we have 100% specificity, which means we have correct and complete every time down to a 3mm needle. The rub is you have to drop one at a time, but they usually cut one at a time. So that's the protocol, but the surgeon puts them in themselves. So I don't want to say that it's worked in a live surgery because we haven't done it on humans yet. Does that answer the question? Every single needle on the market except for one company has a magnetic needle, so that's first, meaning it's made of ferritic. There's one that's tiny for microsurgery that is non-magnetic. It won't count those. But all of them use what's called a digital matrix code, and that code is a QR code. And what we do is we scan that. 8% of miscounts are done before the surgeon ever walks in the room. So a lot of sutures have 2 needles on them. 8. So we do an automatic inventory.
Just a quick question related to, I'm working in a company called Wise IoT Solution. For the IoT part, are you using Bluetooth? How much reliable that could be?
Yeah, great question, and I think I'm at time, so I don't want to monopolize. So we can talk about it more over there, but it communicates Bluetooth from the bucket to the permanent wall-mounted IoT. What we've standardized on, because we also use a blockchain for the disposables for inventory management and customization, and it's a full IoT stack in there. Every kind of wireless technology you can think of. The Bluetooth BLE from there to there, yes, and we use an iPad, which has already been standardized for the display.